Life and faith in the South are intertwined, as inexorably joined together as mists rolling over the Blue Ridge Mountains. At least they are in my family. Church and the faith that went along with it figured largely in my early years. The rituals, the beliefs, the gatherings, the music. Each of these things influenced me as I grew. They brought me joy and pain over the years. I wondered how it affected the other women in my family. What were their memories of church, and what role did faith play in their lives in the present? For my great Aunt Margaret, born in 1925, church was an event. Growing up on a rural farm in the 1930s meant isolation and work, lots of work. So church was a welcome break and chance to socialize with other children. The church dinners, socials, and revival meetings were looked forward to by the whole family. From her memoirs, I am guessing that one of the things that made a lasting impression on my aunt as a child was the food. She wrote, "The women of the church would spread their sumptuous food out on wooden tables, and the tables were covered with white tablecloths or sheets. Mrs. Church, Claude's mother, made the most delicious stacked cake, 5 layers high. It had fruit in between each layer and fruit topping. Those cakes were so moist and tasty. Mrs. Forrester and Mrs. Frankie Williams and Mrs. Nanny Roberts were good cooks and always had some special treats and plentiful supply. None was so good as the food Mama took. She would fry chicken and ham and make the yummiest jam cakes ever baked. Of course, the cold lemonade was a highlight for me. There were no soft drinks available at our dinners in those earlier years. It was a treat to get banana sandwiches and peanut butter and crackers. We never had those foods at home." The social aspect of church was an important one for Aunt Margaret. Her very first date took place at the church, at a pie social. She was 12, and the boy she had a crush on bid 75 cents for her pie. She was thrilled. Then her sister, afraid Aunt Margaret would be upset her pie went for so little, outbid him. She was furious. But it turned out all right because her sister asked the boy, Joe, to eat with them. She said that was her very first foray into the world of dating. Life happened at church for my great Aunt Margaret, but that wasn't how it was for everyone. My Aunt Shirley's experience was a little different.
Daddy was always jealous of Mama, so he didn't want her going to church because there were guys there.
Oh.
So I didn't have much of a basis in church.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I became a teenager, then I started going on my own. And my brother and I were baptized over on the Mount Pleasant Road there. The first bridge you come to, it's kind of in a curve.
Mm-hmm.
We were baptized there. And I've gone spells when I didn't go to church, and now's one of them. So.
Well, understandably, you've got a lot going on right now, Aunt Shirley.
But I started that before this started. But I went to Livingston Memorial, which is at Toward Lenore, and that's a real good church. I got a lot out of it. And then we had a preacher that came in and started changing everything. So I got ticked with him.
That's allowed.
We had this after Bible school. We'd have commencement, and then we'd all go out beside the church, and there was this big bank, and the guys would put real wide plastic, probably as wide as this room, all the way down that, and then they bring out the water hoses and the soap. I never did go down it. I was a chicken, but I loved watching other people go down it.
When was this? Was this in like the 1950s?
No. This was a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine at Grandma's church them doing that.
No, this was up at Livingston at Toward Lenore, and I mean from this size up to 6-foot guys go flying down that thing. And one of the first things that preacher did was take that away.
Oh, no wonder you were ticked at him.
I mean, that's what everybody looked forward to after Bible school. You know, that was the end of Bible school was having our water slide. And you remember Reba Walsh?
I think so.
She worked over here at the factory. She'd go flying down that thing, you know. The older people enjoyed it as well as the kids. So, but he took away most of the stuff that was fun.
Oh.
And so I haven't been in a good while.
So, would you say that faith and church play an important role in your life, or did?
Oh, it did.
It did.
It did. And of course, I got Livia to going, you know, when she was young, and she's still going. I think she goes about every Sunday. The preacher that was down here has a church over close to her now.
That's good.
So,
Well, and all your youngins went to church, I think.
yeah. And Eddie didn't go as much as some of the others. He did when he was young. But yeah, Paula and all of her family go. And Andor and Rachel and Rick do. But Belinda's never been interested.
Yeah.
So
So aside from just attending church, but your faith and belief in God, is that an important part of your life?
oh yeah. Oh yes, I definitely believe in God and the Bible and the whole thing, you know. Yeah, I definitely believe in that. And I'll start reading the Bible and then I get sidetracked. Then I'll go back to reading it. And my prayer life is probably not what it should be. I do pray, but it's not as strong as it should be.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Shirley. I always love to hear you talk.
I'm so full of it.
After I spoke with Aunt Shirley, I spoke with her daughter, Andorra, who told me before we began to speak that she was afraid that she would break down and cry as she spoke about what her faith and church meant to her. Thank you, Andorra, for taking some time to talk with me. So my first question is, what were some of your earliest memories and impressions of church?
Going to Bible school. We would Bible school hop between different churches. And we always had a good time going to the different Bible schools. My daughter Rachel, she never did get into it like we did, but and Grandma, she would teach in that big project. And our class would like finish a piano one year. They did big things. We always went to church for Christmas Eve.
I did that too. The same church.
The same church.
Good memories.
And they would have goodie bags when you left. You'd always get a bag. It still has the same thing it did. It did when I was a child. It still had apple and orange and some fruit and gum.
So, tell me, how did being a part of the church and growing up like that, what did that mean to you?
It's just part of my life. I mean, it's just something I've always done. We would always go, on Wednesday nights we had GAs, and like you had to win, you had to do we had GAs, and then we went to Act Teens, and Act Teens, you had to do these, projects and stuff to earn stuff, and then we'd have like an award ceremony, and everybody would wear their formal gowns and stuff, and we earned like a crown and a cape and a staff.
Just kind of biblical, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I went with one of my friends to the Monte Vista camp when I was a child. But church is just something it's always been there for me. That's where my family is.
So, tell me, how is church important to you? And if so, how does it influence how you live your life?
Church is very important. I go to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. I have offices in the church. One of my gifts is more on the paper side than the witness side. I'm not a good talker, you can see.
You're doing great.
But it's very important. The people in my church, they're there for me. They're my family. I mean, they're my extended family. And they really need to be there for me right now.
Oh, I know.
And they are.
I spoke to my Aunt Ann next. She's in her late 70s now, and her early memories of church are fading, but she still knows what her faith meant and means to her. So, Aunt Ann, tell me about some of your remembrances of going to church as a girl, or...
I remember more of Goshen Baptist than
Well, tell me, was church important to you, and is church important to you?
yes, but I don't remember much about the church, though.
Well, why don't you tell me about what your faith means to you today, Aunt Ann?
It means a lot to me, although I can't remember much about it.
My Aunt Margaret was whom I spoke with next. She, my Aunt Ann, and my Uncle Harvey still live on the family farm in Wilkes County.
I can't remember. I remember going out here to Beaver Creek when I was a kid. I remember they used to cook, it might have been Vacation Bible School. I remember they used to cook hot dogs and hamburgers, and we had to eat out at the church, and I think it was maybe Vacation Bible School. And we used to play out behind the church with the different kids playing, and so I liked that, the playing and I think Lib Watch and Zelty's Watch were attending the church back then, because Lib was a Sunday school teacher, and I remember I used to have this little New Testament. Lib Watch, I think, had given it to me. She was our Sunday school teacher, and it was down in the bottom of the church, back in that little cement cinder block room there. And I don't really remember exactly impressed, but I've had good memories of enjoying being at church and different things we did.
My Aunt Ann interjected her own story at this moment about my Aunt Margaret.
She would get up in front of the church and sing a little song.
Did she?
I can't remember exactly what all we played. We might have had a kickball or something, kick the ball around, maybe played hide and seek.
So that was the best part of church, playing ball.
Well, I don't remember the church part when I was a little kid. I remember the play part, And then Sunday school, having Lib Walsh as a teacher, and I like Lib Walsh, and I thought she was a good teacher, but I can't remember how the Bible, when I was real young, I remember it seems like Mama read the Bible to us growing up when we was little kids, and then she may have had some of the older sisters read the Bible to us.
Ah.
Did Rose and Ann used to read the Bible to us when we were Bible story book? I always thought it was Mama, but then somebody, I heard that some of the older ones in the family read us Bible stories.
I don't remember it being anybody but Mama reading it.
Mama reading the Bible stories to us. But see, that was at home. That wasn't at church.
Okay. Well, tell me, how would you, what role do you think faith plays in your life now?
I can't get through a day without praying. I need prayer to help me through my days. I believe in God and I believe in salvation and being saved, but I need prayer to get through my days. Can't make it without it. Prayer makes a difference for me.
My mama came next. My mama loves music, and it figures into her very first memories of church. Mama, so I was wondering, can you tell me what your earliest remembrance of church is?
Actually, my first remembrance of church is it was Christmas Eve. We were in Goshen Baptist Church, and they had all of these beautiful Christmas carols sung and a Christmas play enacted. And then the pastor said, "Does anyone want to add something? Does anyone have a song?" And my sister Joanne said, "I have a song." And she walked up there on the stage and she sang, "Little Tom Tinker sat down on a clinker and he began to cry, 'Mama, Mama, what a poor fellow am I.'" And they loved it.
How old was Aunt Joanne when she did that?
Oh my goodness. She was kindergarten.
Are you sure you were alive then?
Well, maybe she was older than kindergarten,
I mean,
because they didn't have kindergarten then.
Oh,
But
my
she
goodness.
was just a few years older than I was, and she toddled up there and she sang that song. And they loved it.
I bet they did.
I was very young. I was admiring her.
What other memories of church do you have as a young girl, Mom?
Oh my goodness. Singing in the choir, just, and it spilled over to home. My cousin Joe would come in from Bob Jones University, and I think he had a doctorate in music, but all he could play the piano. And he'd come in, and that piano had keys missing, and ivory's worn off of it. But he could come in and just get music out of that, and we would all gather around and sing. And we sang songs of church and the faith, and Cousin Joe was a riot. We loved to see him and his wife, Billy Joe, come and visit. Yeah, church spilled over into home. And there was also times when my mom and Dad would invite Joe to come, and he would bring a missionary who was from another country. And there was one man I remember who was Spanish speaking, and my mom had fixed a mincemeat pie, which was fresh fruit, dried fruit in a pie shell that she made. It was really good. And he asked Joe, "What is that?" And Joe said, oh, gato, meaning it's cat. He was just kind of, ooh, these Americans have funny customs.
Mom, did Grandma like hymns?
Oh, yes. Grandma loved hymns.
What was one of Grandma's favorite hymns?
Oh, my goodness, there were so many. I think maybe I'll Fly Away was one.
Will you sing that one, Mama?
Oh. Okay.
I can sing that one with you. I know that one.
Okay. One glad morning when this life is old, I'll fly away to that home on God's celestial shores. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Just a few more traveling days and then I'll fly away to a land where joy shall never end. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away.
What other hymns did Grandma like, Mom?
I know she loved Blessed Assurance. She enjoyed Fanny Crosby a lot.
So, Mama, would you say that faith and church influenced your decisions as a young woman?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Can you give me an example?
I loved my mama, and she was such a godly example. She went to visit people in their homes when they were sick and they couldn't come to church. She encouraged me to be in the different stages of my church life. There was girls' auxiliary, and there was Bible school, and oh, I loved Bible school. I just really felt like I had a home where I belonged, and it made me feel really sad that I was going away and not come back to my church family when I went to college.
So, Mama, church and faith was important to you as you were a young child and as you were a young woman. What about faith now? Faith and church, what role does that play in your life at this point?
Well, my biological family are my brothers and sisters in the Lord, and I really appreciate and love them, and I know all through the years they've loved me, even if I didn't always understand that or receive it. And my brothers and sisters in the church have also helped me understand God's love, His compassion, His mercy, and just help me see through my eyes that there is so much more to life than some people have. And I do fit into the choir in my church, and there's, I don't know, very well-to-do people there, and it's funny how my life just kind of intersects with people of wealth and people who feel like they don't have anything at all. but to have Jesus, oh, I love him with my whole heart, and I see the love of Jesus in people around me. I know they have stories, and I can't look at anyone and say, I know your story, I know what you've been through. But Jesus does love us. He's there for us. And I'm going to serve him with my whole heart.
My last two conversations were with my sister Becca and my niece Leah.
Been there forever.
So we've been sitting here forever, huh?
Are we starting?
We started.
Oh, yeah. Well, you asked me some of my first remembrances from church, and that was one of the first ones. It was long. It felt like we sat there forever. I remember especially when we started house church, and it was like, you know, everybody could just get up and speak as they felt the Spirit move them, and praise and worship had an unlimited time, you know, basically till people got tired of singing, and then so was the preaching. And I remember just laying there one time on the stairs with my legs up the wall looking at the ceiling, and I felt like we were never, ever, ever, ever going to get to go outside again. We were going to be stuck there for the end of my life. That's what it felt like. But that was one of the first things that came to my child mind. But a lot of good gatherings, a lot of really good, positive people.
Hatch and Phyllis Front.
Yeah, and the potlucks, and the fireworks shows, and the volleyball games.
Is it just me?
And the fish fries.
Oh, yeah. They'll correct me, but didn't Dad mainly instigate that fireworks show? I mean, didn't he kind of spearhead it a lot?
I believe so. That's what my childhood self remembers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he was out there lighting them off with everybody. So.
We talked some about some of your first recollections of church, which were basically that church was long. I admit that's kind of how I felt about it too when I was young. Do you remember any of it making an impact on you spiritually?
Honestly, I feel like not really. Not so much spiritually. I feel like I felt most spiritually connected as a child generally when I was out in nature. I remember that's when I asked Jesus into my heart, was when I was out and driving through one of the cow pastures with Mom. So, I don't know. I guess I just kind of felt like it was just something you were supposed to do, and I liked when we got to play with other kids, and it was cool when we actually got a Sunday school. We actually got some attention as children. And when there was that house church up near Hilltop Drive-In, and they had like the marble game. I loved the marble game.
Is that the Kerplunk game?
Where the marble would go down the little maze.
Oh, yeah, I remember
That was really cool. And they made us those balloons with bubble gum in them. That was really cool. Yeah, I feel like maybe house church didn't have a whole lot offered to us kids, really. I think it was more adult focused, at least in the later house church years. Maybe in the earlier ones there was a lot more for kids.
No, I kind of agree. I feel like a lot of that was like, you're gonna pick up Jesus by osmosis.
Yeah. And then somebody might take it on their heart to take the kids and do a special walk with us and talk about something.
Yeah. You said that if growing up in church, like a relationship with Christ really wasn't something that you experienced when you were young. It was more of a ritual. I mean, you didn't say it exactly like that, but it was more of, it wasn't necessarily personal. Did it ever become personal for you, or basically, what are your spiritual beliefs like today?
Well, I went through, different series of, I guess, stages of belief systems that have been kind of constantly evolving. Like, I went through a stage where, like, when my dad left the church, that kind of made me feel like I wanted to leave the church too. It really shook my faith. I was like in 5th grade, and I was like, and he'd been really passionate and adamant about it so much, and he was like my hero when I was younger. And so I went through a stage of being atheist, and then I kind of, the more I was learning about the planet and the universe, I became agnostic. I was just like, wow, this is all just too amazing to just be a coincidence. And so now I've been attending a Unity church, so and I feel like that's...
Hello, random dog. Hi, doggy. Ooh.
And so I feel like that has brought me back. That's where I've had like the most personal relationship with. So are we starting a new segment?
No,
We're still going?
we're still going.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, in Unity Church, they teach from the Bible, and but it's less. I guess part of the problem I wound up having with the certain aspects of Christianity was I felt like it was sort of isolating, and that it was like the one way, and everybody else was a sinner who was going to hell, and I had an issue with that even when I was a little kid, and
Yeah, it used to worry. It used to really concern me too. Like, especially with like children
yeah.
or people that hadn't heard about Jesus. It really used to scare me. I was like, how can they be going to hell? They just don't know who Jesus is.
Yeah, I had problems with that for sure. And so I think in Unity, one of the things I really like about it is it's a lot more like embracing of all walks of life, and trying to unify people through love and the Christ consciousness that is believed within all of us. And so she preaches kind of like the second coming of Christ will come more through everybody, that energy waking up in everyone, and kind of heaven on earth coming up through us seeing Christ in each other and expressing that part of ourselves more and more and more so. So I think it's a good thing to strive for.
Yeah. Just ask you a random question. What do you think Grandma Winifred would think of you having kind of a monotheistic viewpoint of faith at this point, and for heaven's sakes, going to a Unitarian church?
Unity Church, Grandma. I don't know. She'd probably pray for my soul that I wouldn't go to hell. Probably.
Well,
That's what Mom does, I think. I don't know. Maybe Mom doesn't. Mom's gotten a little more open-minded.
yeah,
She and I used to butt heads a lot when we talked about religion.
yeah.
We'd pick on each other. And then I finally was like, you know what, I don't want to keep doing that. So I would quit picking on her, and then she would kind of pick at me. And finally, now we've gotten to a place where we're able to talk about it and share with each other pretty well. And the fact Mom was forced to go to my church for a while when she lived with me, I think.
Yeah.
She was like, well, there's a lot of really nice people there. And so,
Oh my gosh.
and yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think Grandma there, there's some deep roots and old belief systems, and some of it I think becomes dogma after a while. And you just do it because that's what your ancestors did. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, she was a pretty devout Southern Baptist, I believe, so she might be a little concerned if we talked theology together.
Yeah, but I think one of the interesting things about Grandma is, despite that deep-rooted Southern Baptist, they actually went to a Methodist church for a while. I know. Because, you remember, did you ever hear any stories about the 1940 flood? It was really, really bad. destroyed a lot of the infrastructure in Watauga and Wilkes County. And but their church that they went to got swept away. There was absolutely nothing left of it, and there weren't enough members of the church to rebuild it. And so while it was being rebuilt, they all went up to the Methodist church. So, but what I was going to say is I think that Grandma, you know, under all that, she did have a deep love for people. And I think that was apparent in some of the things that she did, not just for specifically within the church, but just for the community, like all the little toys and things that she made for people, for poor children within the community.
Yeah, maybe she wouldn't have had much.
Oh no, I think she would have had an issue with it, but I just think that, I don't know. I think Grandma changed some with the times, so.
Yeah. I've seen Mom doing that, changing with the times. So.
Hi. Thanks for taking a little time to talk to me, sweetheart. No problem. Okay, so my question is this, and just answer it as honestly as you want to and say whatever you'd like, okay? Okay. What are your earliest memories of church?
My earliest memories of church were waking up and it was either go with Grammy or go with you to church. And I usually wanted to go to your church because it had children's church and Grammy's church didn't.
What made an impression on you at church?
Goldfish. No, I'm kidding. Probably.
I thought you were going to say VeggieTales.
Well, yeah, that's a big one. I remember I'd know all the songs to the VeggieTales, and I remember that I would get all these little Bibles that had pictures in them, and I remember a lot of those stories, and like Joan of Arc and a lot of that. Not Joan of Arc. The whale.
Jonah?
Jonah. Yeah. Joan of Arc's a woman.
Yeah.
They sound similar.
Jonah, Joan, yes. Yes, very similar. Okay, so did anything that you saw at church make a lasting impression on you? Did it ever affect any of the ways that you behave? Or just live your life in general?
Well, I think it helped me pray more because going to church, they taught us that praying could help with bad situations or could help other people if you pray for them. So when somebody's in a bad situation, like part of our family, I'll pray for them. That's probably the biggest thing church left for me since I was little.
Would you say that church has been a good experience for you?
Yeah, it's been good. There was always fun things to do, and it's always taught you good lessons every time you go.
All right, thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Bye.
Listening to 3 generations of my family speak about their faith was a fascinating experience for me. It gave me insight into their present viewpoints and past choices. It intrigued me that regardless of the path they took with their faith and the form it developed after childhood, it remained important to each of them, still as much a part of their lives as the Blue Ridge.